Calicut, personally, it's the city I grew up in. It's my place, though I worked in Delhi and currently I work based out of Kochi. It's a place I have deep connections with. So, uh, just jumping right into the topic. So, I want to take you back to the take you back maybe 1,000 years ago, something like that, in very old times, maybe what you call the Sangam age. The whole South India was something called, Kerala was part of what you call Tamilagam, or the place where the predominant language was Tamil. May not be the way, or Adi Dravidam. So Kerala was the people of Kerala were the ones who actually the people of Mala, or the hills. So the western part of Tamilagam was inhabited by these people, and that part was under the Cheras, the King Cheras actually. So mainly three sort of political entities were there in the Tamilagam. One is Cheras, then Pandyas were there, and then Cholas were also there. So they had their own sort of politics. Sometimes somebody would defeat them, somebody would become powerful. So predominantly Kerala was under the Cheras, and that's one reason. There is a theory that Kerala got its name because of this Chera kings. Cheralam became Keralam. So that's one sort of a theory. So around 800 something interesting happened in the western or in the Chera the empire. So if you look at this slide, so for Cheras, most of their trade relations and this Kerala was from very old times very famous for its spices. So ancient Egypt, you may have heard mummies had spices stuffed into their noses, and the references of spice trade is there with Roman Empire. So spice trade has been happening for a very long time. So that usually those spices actually went from this Kerala, or it was also called Malabar, also referred to as. Essentially, it was part of the Chera kingdom, and the place, the main port from where it went out is called Muchiripattanam or Musiris, or it's also called Mahodepuram. So that was like the commercial center of the Cheras, or the port. That port was the commercial center of Cheras. But their actual political capital was somewhere in interior. Maybe you can say somewhere near today's Coimbatore, in the Congo region. So these people actually ruled from there, though their commercial activities and everything happened mainly from the coast in the Muchiripattanam. So around 800 something happened that this this Cheras and Pandyas started having conflicts, and Pandyas actually started dominating or they defeated Cheras and dominated the political situation. Say, especially in the interior part, this this Pandya domination started, and sometime later on, what happened was some sort of friendly relationship also started. Marital relation sort of things happened. So a branch of these Cheras who actually settled in the coastal region, the region which was important for their trade and commerce and everything, they actually did not like that fact. So this is something I am telling based on the research done by Mr. M.G.S. Narayan, based on his book Perumals of Kerala. Around 800, this western coast region of the Chera Empire started becoming independent, and the rule of Perumals actually starts. So Chera Perumals actually start. So our historians also referred this period or this as the post-Chera Empire, or the rule of Perumals of Mahodepuram, or like I told you, Mahodepuram is the other name of this Musiripattanam. So they started, and today its name is Kodungalur. So they started ruling based out of this Kodungallur region, which is a port town. So today, if you go to Kodungallur, you can have this remnants of that era. One is Thiruvanchikulam temple, then there is Cheraman Juma Masjid, all constructed during those period, in the early periods of Cheras. So there is even a theory that some other historians are disputing it, but MGS argue that the first Cheraman Perumal was a Shiva devotee, and he actually was well in friend, really a good friend of a Pandya king. A Pallava king who was politically opposing the Pandyas, and then they both actually in their final days actually sat in this temple, and as per the local story, they attained moksha and all sitting at this temple. So it's a very old temple. Maybe if you are visiting Kodungallur, you must go there. So, and another peculiar thing or interesting thing that had happened, or that has been happening in this western coast, or Malabar, or what today is called Kerala, was that around 600, 700 AD or something like that. Brahmin settlements were happening. Brahmins who were actually coming from coming down slowly as settlements, and establishing different villages. So, like I told you earlier, it was a completely Tamil Dravidian sort of a culture, but these people slowly came and settled there. Sanskrit as a new language came up, new sort of technologies, new ways of construction, new sort of agriculture started. So they were already having some sort of influence, or a huge influence in that region. So historians like MGS say that before the arrival of this Brahmin, or starting of the Brahmin settlements, this Kerala coast was not that there were not many people, because it's dense forest. Maybe in the Kodungallur region and all, and many pockets like that, you had people-centered settlements. But with the Brahmin arrival, new areas opened up, agriculture started. So that also, so it's just a century later, or a couple of centuries later, that this Chera branch of the coast started, or declared their independence from the interior Cheras. So the rule of Perumal started, and it went on for several centuries. But it was not like they were the complete, absolute rulers of the entire Kerala or anything like that. There were smaller chiefdoms led by different governors. When it comes to rulers and all, you can't say there is no proper Kshatriya or other sort of classification, but you can call this Perumals. Some call this Perumals Kshatriyas, but the other rulers were like Samantas, who were belonging to, or other chieftains, mainly Samantas who belonged to Nair and other sort of communities and all. So, like you see in this map, there were so many small principalities or governorates, that you call it, across Kerala. One reason is that Kerala itself today, if you look at its geography, it's crisscrossed by, it's a strip of land crisscrossed by many rivers, and on one end, the western end, you have the Arabian Sea. On the eastern end, on the eastern side, you have the Western Ghats. So so that gives a peculiar sort of geography, and so each region between, say, two rivers would become a sort of a political entity, and they have their own sort of local rulers, and small principalities like that were there, and this Chera kings were acting like sort of a suzerain of all these kings, not like a proper king who had a centralized army or complete control of everybody. Then I don't want to go to so many details of this period, but something later what happens is that, like I told you, always there was this Chera, Chola, Pandya conflicts happening in this region, so which also affected, Perumal's kingdom as well. So there were instances where, Cholas had some sort of marital affairs with this Chera kings and some of the, local people were actually sent to fight on behalf of Cholas and all. There are some interesting stories regarding that. But later on, what happened was that by 1100 AD or 1100 AD and all, Cholas became like taking a different stance, and they started having fights and wars and all. So around 1200 AD and all, slowly this rule of Perumals, the might of Perumals actually came down. But by that time, like I told you, this influence of Brahmins, the advent of our, the Sanskrit language, their way of agriculture, their way of land owning, their way of architecture, everything gave Kerala a distinct character. That was the sort of importance of this Perumal period. And what finally happens is that so this Perumal rule abruptly ends around 1100 AD or something. How do we know that? How do we know? Because there are no proper inscriptions mentioning Perumal after a certain period. So I think like it was 1124 AD or something like that. That is the last inscriptional evidence of Perumal rule that we can find. And after that, there is no mention of Perumal in any other inscription. So this is something that perplexes historians. Why such a long-lasting rule and suddenly such a break? So so that takes a historian to believe or give some sort of a credibility to a sort of a local legend that is still prevalent in Kerala, or those who are enthusiastic about Kerala history might know. So that is the story of the last Cheraman Perumal converting himself into Islam and going to Makkah. While he does that, he actually distributes the whole land, which was under his suzerainty, under different office governors. So the story, if I elaborate a bit on that story, it's said something like the last Perumal actually doubted his own general, and by listening to his own wise words, and thought like he had sided with the enemy or something like that. Some wrong he committed, and he actually executed his own general. And later he figured out that it was a wrong information that his wife gave. So it was like a sort of a sin that he did. So he had to do atonement. And so the Brahmin said, like, there is no atonement prescribed in our Vedas. Maybe you should resort to the fourth Veda. That's how we refer to the Muslim religion of Quran. So that is the reason. There are many versions of this folklore. So this says that, so listening to this advice, he actually went with the Muslims and divided his kingdom to his different governors. And he left for Makkah. And in the Middle East also, there is actually a story of one king from Kerala coming and settling there. So we don't know for sure whether this thing really happened or whether that's a folklore. And like I told you, there are different versions of this folklore. Some say like this happened during the time of Prophet Muhammad. Perumal actually left for Mecca because he saw the moon splitting into two. And so there are multiple versions of it. But something that that we can see is that abruptly there is actually a end of the inscriptional evidences from the time of around 1200 or 1000 mid or 12th century. So now coming to the Zamorins, an interesting thing, or this story takes an interesting turn here. The Zamorins, if you look at the this map here, so they were the rulers of this Eranadu, so a principality or a governorate in the almost in the north or northern part of the central Kerala. And it said that they were really good fighters, though they were Nayars or the Samanta sort of. They were not Kshatriyas and all. They were the Perumal was really fond of them, and they assisted Perumal in many wars with Pandyas, and they had helped him achieve many significant victories and all. So when the Perumal was dividing the kingdom, the story goes like the rulers of Eranadu, actually the ruler and his brother Vikiran and Manichan were their names. So they were actually very late to come to that occasion. So they were the last to arrive. And so when they came, Perumal had only one small tract of land, a tract next to the sea, and a sort of a marshy land just next to that. So Perumal told them like, I have only this much. Will you take it? So they said like, we are happy, we'll take it. There's no issue. So this made Perumal really happy. And so he did one more thing. He actually, as per the story, he actually gifted his own sword. It's not like a proper sword. It's actually a sword which was maybe broken and all this. It's in Malayalam, the story says like Odinya Vala, or a broken sword. He actually gave this sword to the duo, and they accepted it. And not just that, he actually gave a command to these two that, I am giving you the right to kill and conquer, or in Malayalam, Chattum Kondum Adakkikolga. So as per the story, you have seen in the map that there are so many governorates like that in Kerala, and all of them got land grants from the Perumal when he left for Makkah. But all of them were said like, I am giving you this land, and my command to you is that just rule this land, don't do anything else. Just look after your people. That's it. But it's only to these two who were given a small tract of land. They were given the diktat to kill and conquer. So the story goes that they actually these rulers actually the rulers of Eranadu, they were also called Eradis. Their clan was called Eradis because they were the rulers of Eranadu, and the governorate of them, or you can also call it's a small kingdom. It was called Nedirippu Swarupam. So it was an interior sort of a land. They did not have sea access or coastal access. So these two actually, what they did was they later shifted to this small tract of spot land that they were given, and then started establishing themselves there. You can see a picture here. So there is actually a chairman sword, which is kept in Calicut, and not many people know about it. It's actually, it is believed to be the original chairman sword. Some say like it's not. At least from history, we can say that Calicut had a fight with Dutch in 1600s. This chairman sword used to be carried everywhere with the Zamorin, and during that in 1600s, this sword was actually broken, or the Dutch actually broke that sword purposefully, thinking like it actually gives them some power or something like that. And after that, this the pieces of sword were put into this sheath and welded. Now you can take out the sword. It's actually sheath and sword is actually together. It's actually kept in the in Calicut at the Kali temple. So yeah, that's about how the forefathers of the Zamorins were granted Calicut. And that time they were not called Zamorins. They were called Poondurakon, or the Lords of Poondura. That's one translation of that word. So there is a theory that for Perumal, they had won a war in the southern Kerala near Trivandrum. There is a place called Poontura. So when there was a war with Pandyas in that region, these were the guys who actually won that war for Perumal, and that's why they were given the title Poondurakon. There is another theory that there is actually another word for Bandarkon, or the lord of the ports. That's another theory which other historians came up with. So whatever it is, these two actually got a small tract of place, which was not at all a port at that time, this land. And Yes, and rest of what they had was a marshy land. So there is a, it's also said in the folklore that it was a place, it was a Kori Kukiyal Kekunda Nadu, or, it's a place where, if that is so small that if rooster sound can be heard anywhere. So this place, later what they did was they a branch of this Nadiri Puswarupam left their original place in that interior part, and then they migrated to the Calicut and started establishing themselves there. They built a koil or a palace and a kota, a fort. And one theory says like, so koil plus kota or koil kota became something what the name koil kota, Koikode or Kozhikode, which also later became Calicut, anglicized and became Calicut. So that's how Calicut got established. And interestingly, if this happened at a very interesting time, when you look at the global politico-economic changes. So this was the time when the Persian Empire was collapsing because of Mongol attacks. Baghdad and all were crumbling. So the trade actually shifted from Persian Gulf to the Red Sea region, and that means new ports like Aden started rising. And it was also a time, Islam was becoming the dominant religion of traders, be it in the West or in the East. West, I mean, like in the Arabia and all those parts. East, I mean, even in China, Southeast Asia, all those regions. So Muslims were everywhere. They were traveling, and the religion was traveling with traders, and traders were spreading this religion. That's another thing. And one thing that Mongols did was they brought a sort of a continuity and stability in the whole Eurasian region. And that also meant trade between, so whatever good that can be taken to say in the to the Gulf region, or like the Middle East, could easily travel to Europe without much political or any attacks on them, because there was political stability. And this was also a time, in the aftermath of several crusades, and many Christians from Europe had traveled to this Middle Eastern region and fought crusades. That time they had came across spices and its usage and everything. So it became sort of a stuff of vanity in the Europe also. So a lot of demand was coming from Europe as well. And in the Middle East, in Arab countries and all, there was already a lot of demand. And in the East, in China, the Song dynasty was there, and they were thriving. A lot of domestic demand was there for spices in China as well. In fact, more spices went to China from Calicut than to say to the West or the Arab or European region. For every, say, one ship of, there is one statistics I read, maybe in the early times, 1300, 1400s and all, for every, or 1300s, for every one ship of pepper that went to the Middle East, 10 actually went to China. So a lot of global events were shaping such sort of a high demand for spices in the international market. And if you look at Kerala, there were many ports, like for instance, Kodungalur was there, and below Kollam was there. But all these ports were controlled till then by either Jews or Syrian Christians, because till then, like they were the dominant ones, especially Jews were the dominant ones controlling international trade, say. But by that time, Muslims were dominating. The Muslims badly needed a place to trade from Malabar coast. And since the other two major ports were occupied by these two communities, they wanted a new place. And on the other hand, Zamorin, who wanted to establish this small tract of land that he was given, if we believe the folklore. He also wanted the assistance of traders. So that's when that's how the story of Calicut starts. That's how. So what Zamorin does is, so he started allowing Muslims, actively encouraged them to come and settle there, build mosque, do conversions. He adopted the, the most liberal policies towards trade. So all this actually contributed to the rise of this kingdom. So if you look at the governance aspect, taxation was low compared to any other part of the the Western coast, and then ease of doing business, very less bureaucracy. And then he had also given a proper, he helped them build proper godowns, and he allocated proper sort of policing system so that private property is properly protected. He ensured that in 1300s, Ibn Battuta, I think, writes that in any other parts of the coast, if a ship goes wreck, the king or the people of the region have a right to collect whatever the shipwreck, and the person or the trader doesn't have any right over them. But in Calicut, it was opposite. If something happens, like a shipwreck or something like that, this king would actually personally go and see to it that all those whatever possible is collected and brought back to the trader. So those sort of things. And then the cosmopolitanism, any religion of any race, any language, everybody was welcome here. Especially if you're a foreigner, you were given special privileges. Like, for instance, an Arab trader especially was given as an accountant, a guard, and other sort of facilities. Maybe even those times the trade was highly dependent on monsoon winds. You didn't have mechanized ships at that time. It was sail ships. So during from Arabia, they would come for southwest monsoon and anchor here, and then buy all the stuff, things, spices and everything that they need. They would unload whatever goods they want to sell here to people coming from the east, from China and all. They will unload it. So whatever they can purchase from Calicut, spices, and whatever they can purchase from the traders of China and all, they would purchase. So it was a transshipment sort of a point it was. So that would happen. And then they would wait for the northeast monsoon to arrive so that the wind reverses and, they can go back to their own region. So Chinese depended on the reverse sort of system. They would, I think, arrive during the northeast monsoon time and, depart during the southwest. I have to really check. But the point being, all these traders had to stay here for several months. So the king would arrange them proper quarters, and he even allowed them to marry local women, including some say like upper caste women. So most of those marriages especially happened with the fishermen communities. One of the most interesting thing about Calicut was that so it said that there was a rule that the king said every male child born in a fisherman family on a Friday should be brought up as a Muslim, even though his parents could be a Hindu or any other religion. So there are different versions of that story. Some say like one male child of every family. So basically, this sort of active encouragement of Islam as a religion, because Islam was the religion of global trade. So it was very sharp in recognizing this thing and adopting policies like that. So pluralism was there. And another thing, if you have visited Calicut, one thing you can note is that the Calicut is Calicut is not actually a natural port. You don't have a harbor sort of a system. In rough times, it can get really stormy, and you can your ships can there is no proper place for ships to anchor close to the coast, unlike in Cochin and all. So the other factors like the ease of doing business, the trust, the protection of private property, or these sort of attitudes were the reason that actually attracted the traders from all over the world to this place. And that way you can say that these rulers were somebody, or the Calicut rulers were somebody who understood the value of governance or good governance at those times. And of course, there was a huge element of PR also. Public, they would circulate all kind of stories about their truth, honesty, among everybody. So why? Because they knew trust was something that had to be built like this. They knew that. For instance, there are several stories. One story that finds mention in local folklore of Calicut is that so there was one trader, a Chettiar from, I think, some maybe Tamil Nadu or Andhra or some those. Ambareshan was his name. So he was actually coming back after his trade with the Middle Eastern region. It says Makkah or something, and he had a lot of gold and other sort of wealth in his ship. It was so heavy that he couldn't navigate the rest of his journey with that much wealth in his ship. So what he does is he goes and meets the king and tells him that I have a lot of money with me. I want to store it somewhere. So can you help me? The king says, well, of course you can store it. He makes arrangements. And the Chetty actually stores everything there and goes, leaves, and after months he comes back. And that time when he approaches the king, he tells the king, thanks a lot for keeping this thing. So you can take your share and give me the rest. So the king says like, no, I won't take any share. It's actually completely yours. It's your property. So that actually, so the Shetty actually falls in love with this king and this administration and the place, and he actually settles his trade and every activity here. So it's said that the initial establishment of today's big bazaar or Valiyangadi actually started like that, or the bazaar of Calicut started its establishment like that. That was one story. Another story says like in Muscat, there was a king, and he had in Muscat there was actually a trader. He had two sons, and he didn't want these two to fight. So he told the eldest to go away and trade somewhere else. So the eldest actually wanted to find out a new place to trade. So he wanted to test rulers of the coast. So he would go to each ruler with a jar of pickle and give them as gift. So the pickle below the pickle would be gold, and he would do that to everybody. Nobody returned this thing saying like it had gold. Only Zamorin does it, and so this guy decides to settle there, and he settles there, and he becomes the chief of, or he becomes the port officer, the Shah Bandar of Calicut, and he was given the title of Shah Bandar Koya. So many stories. So historians argue that all these were part of the PR exercise that Calicut used to do. Even today, if you look at Calicut, if you know, everybody is, oh, Calicut people, they are nice, or the auto rickshaw people of Calicut, they are nice. If you forget something in their auto, they'll give it back to you. So that legacy still lives, at least in like this sort of, whether we are actually nice or not, that's something you have to decide. So that is the kind of that is the name of my talk also, City of Truth. So this name was a big reason why Calicut actually from 1200s till the Mysore invasion of 1776, it became like a major hub of global trade. Maybe maybe we can say after Europeans arrived, it actually slowed down because of the wars and other political factors. But for several centuries, Calicut was at the heart of global trade as the transshipment point between East and the West. So this is actually, for instance, this 15th century drawing of Calicut, imaginary. I don't think the person visited here, but you can get an idea. Like, you can see the Western Ghats and the sea. So all the pepper and all the spices that we had came from the hills and all the surrounding lands and came to the city, and trade happened. So, like I said, Muslims had the biggest role in Calicut. So so even today, you can say that Hindu-Muslim friendship is a big factor even in today's Calicut. You can see it in people's friendship and many other things. So our food habits, our sort of architecture. For instance, this is actually one of the mosques that was built in 1300s by a descendant of an Arab, Nakuta Mishkal. He was a very wealthy Arab person. And when Ibn Battuta came here, he had actually met this guy. So it is currently, it's a 5-floor mosque. Looks just like a temple. And during 1500s, Portuguese actually attacked, and it currently stands beautifully. And just if you walk a few hundred meters away from the Mishkal Mosque in Kutichira, you actually find an even older mosque. There is actually an inscription which I show you in the left. On the right, you have Arab, or you have Arab, inscription, and on the left it's in Malayalam. It says like how the king. Here it is mentioned as the Pundurakon, because by that time Zamorin was not called Zamudri or Zamorin by that time. He was called Pundurakon. So this 1200 inscription says that how he allocated land for its daily routine affairs and other rice and how. So those of things that he did to the mosque. So whenever there was an so even Mishkal Mosque also, once after it was attacked by the Portuguese, he actually brought Nair soldiers and and then he protected it and he rebuilt it. So basically, Muslims had though technically it was a port, a free port. Everybody could come and trade there. Muslims there had a virtual monopoly of trade. And then, like I said, the Zamorin actually actively encouraged policy of conversion. And then later on, when I don't want to go to too much details, but when Europeans arrived, the Muslims were at the forefront of fighting them, especially in the wars with the Portuguese throughout the 1500s. It was the Kunyale Marakkar, or Muslims who actually led the naval forces of the Zamorin. And now coming back to Zamorin, so Zamorin actually started from Calicut, a small port. With the help of Muslims, he accumulated a lot of wealth and power and everything. And then if you remember the first part I said, that they had gotten a dictum from the erstwhile ruler, a command that to kill and annex. So their military policies were very aggressive. They started slowly annexing different region and became at their peak occupied almost what you can say like almost nearly half of Kerala at one time, nearly. So and they also back then the biggest politico-cultural / commercial festival of Kerala was something called Mamangam, which was conducted once in 12 years. And he actually defeated the king under whose jurisdiction it was conducted, and he became the head of Mamangam with the help of Muslims. And one theory says that that's when he assumed the title of Swami Tirumulpadu. And that later became like Swami Tirumulpadu became like Samudripadu and later shortened to Samudri or Zamorin. And you should also read about the Chavers or the suicide squads. For the story is very fascinating that for many centuries, the descendants of the guards of the princes of the region who were killed by Zamorin in that region swore oath that we will actually, till our death, we'll oppose Zamorins conducting Mamangam, and we will actually die in that process. So in every 12th year, when Zamorin conducted Mamangam, these people actually, in very sannyasi, particular wearing particular dresses and all, they actually came and fought with Zamorin forces, and it was highly against odds. So they knew like it was suicidal mission. So Chavez is something you should read about. And another thing that many people don't mention about Calicut is that the trade relation that we had with China. More than like I told you earlier, more than the Arabs or the Europeans, at one time Chinese were trading the most with the Zamorins. And Chinese had the highest regard for Calicut. And so this is Admiral Cheng He. So he's a legendary admiral in the history of China. He was under the Ming dynasty, and at their time, China was so powerful that they just wanted to show off the rest of the world that we are really powerful, we are really rich. And so they sent a grand treasure voyage led by this guy, Cheng He, 7 times, between, I think, 1404, if I'm not mistaken, you can Google it, 1404 and 1430s or something like that. 7 voyages were, sent. For the first 4, the destination was actually Calicut. And Calicut, they called it GULI or, GULI. So that was their final destination in the first 4 voyages, because they consider Calicut like an entity that can actually match their level of administrative setup, or or some a kingdom that deserve their respect. It is also said that they had erected a sort of a tablet in Calicut commemorating friendship and everything, but that later got lost. So this legendary admiral, who came with an armada of 300, 400 grand ships with a crew of maybe 25, 30,000 people in just one mission. So in the final mission, it is said that he actually died in Calicut, and some say that he was buried in the sea since he was a Muslim. So that's a very interesting episode in the Calicut history. Today, we don't have any remnants of it, except maybe there is actually a place called Silk Street in Calicut, which is in, which some say was the place where Chinese actually came and traded. The Calicut history, actually changed with the arrival of Europeans, because Europeans actually wanted to establish connections with the source of the spices, and they were looking for pepper and Christians as well, because they were in the hangover of crusades. They thought like there was actually a fake news sort of a letter circulating in the Europe for several centuries. A letter from a fabled king called Prester John, who they thought like ruled somewhere in India or maybe somewhere in Africa or something like that. And it thought like he was actually Christian. He had a lot of wealth, a big army, so he could actually help in fight with the Muslims in crusades and everything. So Europeans actually, the mission under Vasco da Gama were the ones actually were the Europeans who found a route to Calicut through through Atlantic Ocean, circumnavigating the Atlantic Ocean. Don't think like Gama was the first European to come to Calicut, because there were so many people from Geneva and Venice and all who were actually coming with the Arabs to Calicut through the routes of Arabs, other traders and all. But Gama was the first European who actually circumnavigated Atlantic and found a new route. So that actually changed the history of Calicut, and changed the history of entire Indian subcontinent, or South Asia, or South Asia, or the global history as well. So for the next 1 century, we had fights with Calicut had fights with the Portuguese, and Kunyali Marekar, a Muslim. There were mainly 4 of them, Kunyali 1, 2, 3, and for there was a succession of them. So for one long century, they actually fought Portuguese, and they were the reason why Calicut actually did not became sort of a colony of the Portuguese. And there is a sad ending to it that the fourth Kunyali Marakkar, or the third one actually successfully managed to demolish a fort that Portuguese had established. So after that, they had to completely shift to Goa. And after that, Zamorin became so happy that he allowed this Kunya Marakkar to set up a fort of his own. But the last Kunya, his own nephew, the fourth Kunyali, actually started ruling from there. And later, Zamorin and this guy, the fourth Kunyali, actually became, started developing sort of ego issues. And later, the Zamorin themselves, the then Zamorin actually sided with the Portuguese to capture and kill this guy. And that is also a major episode in Calicut, because that gave a blow to the Hindu-Muslim unity. And in 1600, Dutch came, and they also had a major influence. And with the Dutch also, Zamorins fought a lot of wars. And it was during one such a war that initially I told you about, that sword was broken. So it was in 1660s or something like that. The Dutch actually broke the original chairman sword, and the sword that you see today is said to be the remnant of what is left. And the story of the Zamorin rule ends in 1766 with the advent of the Mysoreans, or the Hyder Ali. The reason was Zamorin had earlier promised when he was that he would pay a certain amount of money to the Mysore kingdom after he was kind of defeated in a small battle with Hyder Ali's forces. When Hyder Ali was only commander of the Wadayar kings of Mysore in 1750s or something like that. So when Hyder actually became the ruler of Mysore, he actually sending people to demanding that money. By that time, it had become a huge money, and by that time, the Zamorin did not also have that much of amount because of some internal issues and the decline in revenue from trade and everything. So Hyder Ali actually invaded Calicut, and the Zamorin of 1766, he actually did not have any other options. He could not surrender also. And he could not defeat them also. So he actually committed suicide by burning down the entire palace. So in 1766, the story of Zamorin actually ends. I think it's time now. Maybe rest of the things, maybe I can elaborate.
Sure, we can take the questions now.
Yeah.
Okay. We have a Navy veteran in our midst. Commodore Desu wants to say a few words about the Chinese admiral.
Sure.
Go ahead, Commodore.
Yeah, please.
Can you hear me, sir?
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. Thanks for a nice talk. Very briefly, I just wanted to contribute a bit to the Chinese admirals thing and a little bit on the other part. So, yes, of course, what you said is very true that Zheng He or Tunga, whatever he's called, his fleets came to Calicut. I do understand, though, while not an expert on this, I do understand, though, that the figure of 30,000 and, big armada of ships is a little exaggerated, a kind of Chinese exaggeration on so many. Certainly, they went to Makkah from there for the Hajj pilgrimage. And interestingly, a part of his fleet in his final expedition went to East Africa and touched the East African coast. So that's an interesting part. About his death, there are two speculations. He certainly apparently died in Calicut, but one story says he was buried at sea. The other says he was taken back to China and he was actually buried there because of the logic, he was a eunuch. Now, as per the Chinese, when you bury a person, you bury him as a full man back. So his body, castrated body part is kept separately. And when he's buried finally, he's buried back, which is why he was taken. So
Okay.
probably a bit more research on this.
Yeah,
Um,
sure.
yeah. And secondly, I'm just 30 seconds. I just got back from Kannur day before yesterday.
Okay.
I heard a very interesting story about Terrichari or Talasari,
Hmm.
which says that the three C's, cake or baking, cricket,
Hmm.
and circus in India
Hmm.
actually began in Talasari and Terrichari. Do you
Yeah.
have some idea? Can you throw some light on that?
Yeah.
That's very fascinating.
Yeah. So that was one of the earliest settlements of British. So we
Yeah.
can assume that, in that area, British actually played cricket for the first time, but some actually disputed. Some say like it could even be Calcutta. And this Talacheri was actually part of not Zamorin kingdom, but the Kolatharis, the northern kings. So when British came, this is an area they had captured, and so cake, of course, actually first was actually made there in Talacheri, and then circus also, like Talacheri had a very strong circus culture because of all this European influence. And the thing is, like, it's actually Kolathiri kingdom, the northern, not Calicut.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Sruthin, 2 or 3 people have asked about more details that on the fact that you mentioned that China was more of a trader in spices with Calicut than the West.
Yeah.
So they want to know where this information comes from.
I think I took it from Sebastian Twang's Monsoon Islam or something like that, from a proper history textbook.
Okay.
Yeah. Maybe I don't remember exactly. I think it was Monsoon Islam, that book.
Sir, I'm one of those who asked if you can give the source sometime later, share it. I'll be very happy.
Yeah. I'm actually writing a book on this. So, detailed citation, everything will be there. I didn't want to give too much away.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a question or a comment from Vishnu. He says that he's inquisitive to know if the historical backdrop of Calicut has something to do with the popularity of biryani and halwa. I'm not sure what he means by that, whether these eatables are very popular in Calicut or what.
Yeah, I mean, we have, like I told you, this Arab influence is really a major reason for, or the Mapala culture. I haven't elaborated on Mapalas, which are like a peculiar community who evolved as a result of, marriage alliance between Arabs and locals. And the descendants were called peculiar Muslim community called Mapalas. So their food habits have a major, major Arab sort of an influence. So biryani is actually a big thing in Calicut. For instance, this Paragon biryani was rated as one of the best in the world and all. I mean, if you're into those. So that's obviously a reason, as a result of the, this Muslim Hindu friendship and the, our connections with the Middle East. And then this halwa is actually is famous in it's a part called SM Street, where Zamorin, there is one theory that says that he had settled the many halwa makers and all from different parts of India. And Calicut halwa is also very famous. But some theory also says there is actually, a British who actually, got these halwa makers and all here. So,
Farooqji, can I come in a bit on the halwa part? I don't intend to commandeer the thing. This is halwa is again interesting because I think it has definite maritime connotation. Because if you go across this coast in the Indian Ocean area, it is the Calicut halwa. You come further, Mahim halwa in Bombay, Karachi halwa, Zanzibar halwa. All of them are very similar. Of course, they have local textures, but remember, this was food that was, preserved, that could be preserved for long and could be taken by sailors on their voyages for eating, which is why all these coastal places have this very famous halwa culture. I can't claim to definitively be an expert. I asked Kurush Dalal about it, but Kurush by and large agrees with this theory. But this is another subject worth doing a bit more research on.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Karuvannur.
Staying with food, there's a question from Millen. He said if a lot of the spices went to China and China did not use it in their cuisine, where did all the spices go?
Maybe I have to do my research in that area. This is information like I got from I think Mansoor Islam, that it's a very credible academic work. I think spices those times were not like a very common sort of a thing that they used in every sort of dish or something like that. There's something historians agree. It's more of an elite sort of a thing. So they must have definitely used in such sort of cuisines. Yeah.
There's a longish question from Vishnu. He wants to know the significance of Muziris and where the oldest mosque in the country is located, and how the port's decline influenced the rise of Calicut. Did it influence the rise of Calicut?
Yeah, it did actually. It did. Something I have missed. Like I said, Perumals actually ruled based out of Muziris, or Kodungalur, Muchiripattanam, it is also called. And that was the major hub of trade for many centuries. And in 1341, I think, a major flood happened, which actually completely devastated the. This is something I should have mentioned. I think I forgot. So completely devastated the port. It almost became unusable or unapproachable for ships and all. And that was also the time when Kochi actually emerged out of land because of the mud and silt and everything. So that is one reason. And Jews and Christians and all those. I think Jews were a major community trading from there. So the decline of Muziris was definitely a reason for another reason for Calicut's rise. Later, Kochi is also.
Okay, last question from me. Are there any living descendants of the Zamorin?
Yeah, there are. So in 1766, they exiled to the Travancore, and many of them came back and settled and everything. Now it's just they have certain in there's a place called Tiruvannur. They have some Kovilagams there, and today Zamorin lives a very modest life in a small apartment sort of a thing. I think he just turned 100 recently. So he's still there. So in Zamorin family has 5 positions. Zamorin, Eralpadu, Moonalpadu, then 5 positions are there. So they have multiple families. The senior, most of them become Zamorin. So second senior becomes this thing. So that system still goes on actually.
Okay, thank you so much, Sruthin Lal.
Yeah,
it was very nice to hear from you about this lesser known aspect of our history. And thank you everybody for attending. Do follow us on social media and attend as many talks as you can.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Yeah, and in more detail, I think I'm writing a book. Once it comes out, you'll have all the details and everything. I mean, now I had a limitation of time. So yeah, that also you can keep an eye on.
Great.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.